You had flames coming around in the cockpit.
Yes,
around
both sides. And it was a flash flame. And the flames went out right away. I had no idea why or what it was that caught fire, but I figured it out later. But anyway, once the flames went out, I kept going down in my escape maneuver, and I knew I was being followed, so I kept in the dive until the last minute, you know, to pull out before I ran into the jungle. And so when I pulled back on the stick, I knew something was wrong. Well, I grabbed both hands on the stick and pulled, and finally I could see green turn into skylight. And I breathed a big sigh of relief.
Wow, yeah.
And then I thought, well, I'll crack the trim on it. Well, when I got a hold of the crib tab, it just spun freely. They shot the trim cable in two with full nose down trim. I'm about 125 miles from home this time. If you've ever tried to fly a P-40 with full nose down trim,
oh man,
you know you've got a problem. And so I tried everything I could. The seat belt was too short to get over the stick. I tried holding it with my knees with both hands.
Were you getting tired?
Oh, I was terribly tired.
Yeah, okay.
And so finally, a light dawned in my old brain box. And I said, well, now if it wants to go down, I'll just turn it upside down and it'll climb. And it did. And it climbed for about maybe 45 seconds or so, and I got back about 1,500 feet and it started loading up again. So I rolled it back down again, till it was getting close to the trees again, back upside down again. And I did this for, I have no idea how many times. Until
this was a survival thing. If you didn't, you're going to have to bail out or get in the jungle or...
Yes, it was strictly a survival. At one point,
yeah.
I even called the control when I was about 90 miles from home, and I said, this is my position, and I'm going to bail out. And I looked down at the jungle, and I thought, man, if I can go another 200 or 300 yards, that might be 2 days of walking. Well, we were talking about pulling out of the dive, and after I got the nose back up above the horizon and headed for home, I noticed an airplane up in the distance. And I thought, well, if there aren't any friendlies in the area, chances are that's not a friendly. And he was offset from me like about a half a mile. He was going south and I was going north. So I kept eyeballing him, and pretty soon he got up to where I could see that it was another zero. And he was smoking like the devil. And I think it must have been ones that I had hit before.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so I watched him, and he didn't make a move towards me, and I wasn't going to make a move towards him until after I got past him. And I thought, what the hell?
If I can kill a Jap, I'm going to do it.
So I horsed the thing around and came screaming up behind him. And I got about 100 yards behind him with the dead beat on and squeeze the trigger. And all I got was kerthunk, kerthunk, kerthunk. The pneumatic chargers were trying to charge the guns, but there wasn't any ammo left.
Oh.
And I was going too fast to keep from overrunning him. So I sailed on by to the right. He simply pulled over and started shooting at me. But we were down low, and I went around a hill, and that's the last I saw of him. And pretty soon I got to where I had to go into this business where I couldn't hold the airplane up anymore because with that full nose down trim, eventually I just, my strength just gave out.
Oh, yeah.
So to keep from going into the jungle, I flipped it upside down and let it climb. and I would climb up.
You could rest a little bit.
1,500
You
feet
could rest
before the engine started loading up. And then I would flip it back over and start this descent back again while the engine cleared up. And I did that for about 90 miles until I got close to the base. When I got close to the base, instead of going around to land in the normal way, I came straight in from the south. And when I was out about maybe a half mile, still upside down, I put the gear handle down. Of course, the gear went up and locked in position. And the armament crew there had 20 millimeters that they were using for anti-aircraft defense. And I didn't look like a P-40 coming in, and they were debating on whether to shoot at me or not. Fortunately, they didn't. So I got down close to the ground, rolled it over, got it on the ground, and pulled everything back and just let it roll. And
did it hit pretty hard?
No, didn't.
You had enough elevator to flare.
But I was on the ground in one piece and feeling pretty good.
Well, boy, I would think so, especially with this Zero got after you, and you were in no position to really fight. You couldn't maneuver very well. Just keep yourself afloat.
Well, he wasn't either, so I wasn't too worried about it.
He was smoking. Okay, you talked about another mission. I don't remember what month that was, September?
Oh, that was 19th of May, 1944. And I was a flight leader again with 4 P-40s carrying bombs against a Japanese troop concentration down in Japanese territory near a place called Kaimang. The weather was terrible, and but the particular target was in an open area, and everything back behind us was really bad, and we'd been sitting for 5 days because of bad weather. So we got lined up in trail coming in, and I'd instructed my guys to make sure their bombs are ready to drop. They're armed, and they had their gun switches on. And I was going to come in and drop mine and break left, and we'd rejoin, and then we'd come and do some strafing. Well, I came in and dropped my bombs and pulled up, and I looked up and saw 3 flights of Zeros. There were 4 in the first 3 flights and 3 in the second one, so there were 15 of them. And they had already spotted us. I think they even knew we were there, and they were in a position ideal to attack us, and we were flat caught with our pants down. And so I told my guys to drop their bombs and fly into the clouds or whatever they could to get away because we were in trouble. And the first flight was already going after my wingman, who wasn't very far behind me. I tried to pull around and get a shot at him, but I couldn't pull it tight enough. And they were after him. I called him. I said, "Okay, turn right and fly into the clouds," which he did. And the Zero went right in behind him, and I went right in after them. And then we turned back out and came back out into the open area. But I didn't see O'Connor. I didn't know what happened to him. When I got back out into the open area, all I could see was Zeros. I couldn't see any of my guys. So across the other side of the open area, there was a flight of 4 Zeros over there. And running away from them didn't seem like too good an idea. I either had to get in the clouds or do something different. So I decided just to make a head-on attack at these 4 guys. And so I headed into them, and before I could get close enough in range, they all broke, so I couldn't get a shot at them. Back in the clouds again, out again. Another group of 4 in a different place. And so I went through the same maneuver again, still no other P-40s in sight, just Zeros. Well, I'm going ahead on into this flight of Zeros, and the first one broke left, the second one broke left, the third one broke left, and the fourth one was stupid. He kept coming, and I waited until I got a dead beat on him and squeezed the trigger. And it seemed like the instant I squeezed the trigger, the airplane just blew up. I mean, it just pieces. So back into the clouds again. I come back out. Pretty much the same thing again this time. No member of my flight was visible anywhere, but there were zeros all over the place. So I wound up trading head-on passes with zeros several times, and firing at them, and them firing at me head-on, and so close that when they passed over, one of them in particular, I could feel the whomp from the flow of the airflow from his airplane.
Oh.
And of course, the cowling up there, when it came over the windscreen, it was, like it was right in front of me almost. And a strange thing happened, when I got hit in that previous scrap, I heard some pings that when the bullets hit the airplane. I could hear some pings when these guys were shooting at me, so I thought I had been hit. And I didn't see any evidence of it. And after this thing was all over, I finally shot down 2 zeros and maybe damaged some more. But
well, now your first this December flight, you got a pretty fair beat on about 4 of them, as I remember right.
yeah.
You probably were kills, but they're hard to confirm, huh?
On the first flight, I got the December flight. I got 1 confirmed and 2 probables, and a probable bomber. I found out about several months later that actually that bomber was shot down right over the target. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But Adair aircraft crew was watching them, and one of the crew told me, they said, "Oh, you didn't know you shot that bomber down? I thought you knew it."
Yeah.
I said, "No, I didn't know it." He said, "Yeah, I saw it drop out of the sky on fire and disappeared down, heading towards the jungle."
Well,
I never did anything about that. It didn't matter at that time anyway. But anyway, after engaging these zeros in this open sky area for quite a while, it wound up that I could see 5 zeros left and me by myself, and I couldn't find any more of my crew. So the last time I saw them, there were 5 of them behind me. I was heading south towards their territory. I was already in their territory. They were pushing me farther south, and I couldn't get away until I found a cloud with a bunch of rocks in it, and I flew into that. And when I pulled out, I didn't see them again. So I headed on back, and after about 20 minutes, I saw an airplane circling up there, and I looked, and I thought, well, I don't know whether it's P-40 or 0, but it looks like a P-40. Was my wingman.
oh boy.
And he was sitting up there circling.
You were worried about him
I
too.
was worried about him. I thought I had lost all 3 of my crew.
Yeah.
And I really felt terrible at that time. Well, I joined up with him, and I could see it. He was in sad shape because a 20 millimeter had went off right behind his left shoulder on a canopy, and it took the canopy, aerial, and a lot of others, and he was all hunched over.
He was injured. He was hurt.
He was really hurt bad. And so he motioned it like I thought he was telling me, look at my airplane and see what all is wrong. So I looked him over, and I couldn't talk to him because he couldn't hear me. But I gave him a sign that, it looked okay. And so he pointed at the instruments and went like that. They didn't have any instruments. So we head on out, and we've been going north about 10 or 15 minutes, and I get a call on the radio, Bamboo Red Leader. This is Bamboo 3. I'm over Sadia, and I've been hit pretty bad. He said, I'm circling here, and if you can take a look at me, he said, I'd like to know what my airplane is like before I try to land it. And of course I had O'Connor on my wing, and I thought, well, I don't know. But I decided to, it wasn't much out of the way, so I went up and found him. And he was shot up worse than O'Connor.
Yeah, man.
He didn't have all of his tires were flat, but there wasn't a fluid leak anywhere. So I said, okay, we'll go in. I'm going to fly O'Connor down right to the ground because he doesn't have
an
an
airspeed
indicator.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take off and go around. And Rogers, you land behind him. Your tires are flat, so you're not going to go very far, but I'll get down the best way I can. So I come back around and land. And he had flat tires, and so I told him to land as short as he could and try to give a little room on the side if he could, because the runway was only 100 feet wide and 60 feet of it was usable. Well, I got down, and O'Connor, by the time I got on the ground, they'd already taken him to the hospital. Rogers didn't have a wound, but O'Connor had 113 bullet holes in his airplane.
Jeez.
Some were from dead astern, one from dead ahead, both sides, the top, you name it, through the prop. Rogers had 123. How that airplane flew, I will never know. Of course, they hauled them both off to the junk pile.
Now, did these men survive?
Yes, they all survived. The number 4 man, when they attacked, he got the hell out of there, which was his first mission.
I'm going home.
I'm going home. He went home, and he made it.
Well, now, if I'm counting right, you're an ace.
Well,
but you won't say you're an ace.
I never really claimed, but
you know for sure that you killed.
I know I got 2 on that 19th of December, or 19th of May mission, and probably some more.
Yeah.
And we got an intelligence report back that the Japanese claimed they had shot down 24 P-40s and only lost 9 Zeros. Now that's what the intelligence people said. I don't believe it, but I mean, I think that's a.
Well, you know they didn't lose that many P-40s.
No, and we were the only ones that engaged them.
Yeah. Well,
they might have thought they had because they followed us into the clouds several times. So who knows what they thought. The air-to-air part of it, to me, was not necessarily the important part. The important part was that we were trying to capture northern Burma from the Japanese because they had severed the Burma Road. And there was a movement with a group called Merrill's Marauders and Pick's Engineers that came into Lido, and they started from Lido, going across the Naga Hills, headed for the airdrome at Missional to capture the airdrome. And they couldn't carry any heavy artillery with them through the jungle.
Yeah.
So we became their flying artillery. And I flew a total of 58 bombing missions. Some were against bridges and other things, but a lot of them were in support of Merrill's Marauders with close air support. We had one of our intelligence people on the ground with a radio. They would mark the targets. We would bomb them and then strafe the hell out of them.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of damage.
Phil, certainly a pleasure to talk to you today. This is Colonel Phil Adair from World War II fame, and this is Tales from the Hangar with yours truly, Captain Doug.